Before we begin, let's talk about the directors and what the films are adapted from. The 1930s version was directed by Louis Milestone, who's best known for films like Ocean's 11, the 1960 version, and Two Arabian Nights. The 2022 version was directed by Edward Berger, who's best known for films like Conclave and Jack. Both movies were an adaptation of the book of the same name, which released in 1929 and was written by Eric Maria Remarque, who fought in World War I. Remarque was also credited for helping write the 1930 adaptation. The 1930 version follows a group of German schoolboys talked into enlisting at the beginning of World War I by their jingoistic teacher. The story is told entirely through their experiences of the young German recruits and highlights the tragedy of war through the eyes of individuals. As the boys witness death and mutilation all around them, any preconceptions about the enemy and the rights and wrongs of the conflict disappear, leaving them angry and bewildered. The film is not about heroism, but drudgery and futility and the gulf between the concept of war and actuality. The 2022 version follows teenagers Paul Baumer and his friends Albert and Mueller, who voluntarily enlist in the German army, riding a wave of patriotic fervor that quickly dissipates once they face the brutal realities of life on the front. Paul's preconceptions about the enemy and the rights and wrongs of conflict soon crumble. However, amid the countdown to armistice, Paul must carry on fighting until the end with no purpose other than to satisfy the top brass desire to end the war on a German offensive. For comparing and contrasting, I'm going to pick two scenes that are similar and two that are different or switch things up a bit. The first scene that I'd like to say is pretty similar to the original is the scene where Paul kills an enemy soldier. Essentially, this is what stays the same. Both take place inside a ditch. Paul lifts his helmet above the ditch to see if he can leave the ditch. And then when he realizes he has to wait, he complains about the soldier he stabbed, making too much noise, and soon becomes remorseful and empathetic towards him. Paul attempts to bandage his wound, but finds out it's too late and promises the soldier he'll write a letter to his family. Both scenes show Paul learning how the war is costly and can ruin people's lives, since he is now aware of his actions and the consequences that come with them. I believe they remade this scene almost entirely the same because the original one was great at displaying the guilt soldiers gain and experience from choosing accountability over ignorance. In the next scene that is familiar, I chose the bunker scene because it also displays how not every person can adjust to the intensities of war. So here are aspects that are similar. Both use a similar set design of a makeshift bunker that is meant for safety but is rickety and becomes claustrophobic when hit with bombs on the surface. While the camera moves differently in some ways, they pull off the same claustrophobic feelings the soldiers are having, making sure to focus on facial expressions and body movements. The scene only differs by how they show soldiers losing their mind. In the 1930 version, Mueller is deathly afraid of dying in the bunker and ends up injured when he escapes on his second attempt. There are also rats that scurry around and get killed by the soldiers who are getting worrisome. In the 2022 version, a soldier tries to leave but is stopped by Cat, but then escapes his grip before being blown up at the entrance. The scene was an important inclusion for both films as it showed how life will force you to relish in an uncomfortable or unfortunate situation, especially when it comes to fighting a war. While the film recreates scenes to be similar, there are still scenes which they chose to change in major ways or to have more impact. In both films, a character named Cat is killed, but in both adaptations, they happen differently. The reasons stay the same with Cat searching for food, but the setup is different. In the 1930 version, Cat is away from the camp foraging for food by himself. Paul is informed of this and goes to find Cat, where they reunite, though their conversation is cut short when a bomb drops nearby and fatally injures Cat. Paul doesn't know this yet and carries Cat to the dressing station anyway, where he finds out the hard way. In the 2022 version, they foreshadow his death by setting him up in a scenario that makes the audience assume he'll be okay. Early on in the film, Cat and Paul steal a goose from a farm, getting shot at as they leave, but nobody's harmed. Then as the film gets close to the end, the two return to the farm, but instead of Cat stealing the goose, Paul tries and fails, only getting a few eggs. The two soldiers get chased and shot at, but again, no one is harmed. It isn't until they rest in the forest when Cat is relieving himself and away from Paul that he is shot by a boy from the farm. At first, the editing makes the audience think Cat is dead, but he makes his way back to Paul, who helps him get back to the dressing room, where he also learns of his death the hard way. The second scene, which differs from the original but starts out similarly, is the one where the soldiers are resting and notice a group of women passing through the area. In the 1930 version, Paul and a few of his comrades are swimming in a pond when they notice three women. The two groups make a deal of trading food for sex, creating a temporary moment of peace and joy away from the cruelty and reality of their situation. In the 2022 version, Paul and his comrades are resting in an outdoor stable, and instead of Paul and his comrades leaving to spend time with these women, only his friend Mueller, who is played by Moritz Klaus, goes, but Kropp, played by Aaron Hilmer, makes a comment of calling dibs on one of the women. Paul isn't a focus of the scene until after Mueller leaves, when he doesn't talk but listens to his comrades speak on what they would do if the war was over. Kat is quick to shut down the life of the conversation, which ruins the mood for everyone and the brief moment of peace that existed in a dreamt future that could have been. Now I'm going to talk about the performances. In both movies we follow Paul Baumer. In the 1930 version, he's portrayed by Lou Ayres, who is best known for films like 1938's Holiday and from 1948's Johnny Belinda. Ayres' performance is definitely dated by today's standards and originally came off as amateurish or cartoony to me, mostly because of his voice. But as I worked on this video, it becomes more clear that his tone and delivery help express the emotions that war can cause, and after all, he was just a teenager when he enlisted. While in the 2022 version, he's portrayed by Felix Hammerer, who is best known for films like 2025's Frankenstein and from 2024's Eden. Hammerer's performance is my favorite of the two, and displays the transformation of a boy becoming a man, or at least what society sees as one, and how patriotism plays a part in it. Hammerer's iteration is reserved but quick to action and vocal when it comes to his friends, which makes his performance devastating and, in my opinion, more impactful than Ayres' performance. The next character I believe is essential to the story in both films is Kat. In the 1930 version, Kat is portrayed by Louis Wolheim, who gives my favorite performance in the film and makes the character feel like an uncle or father figure. His accent and facial expressions are what make his portrayal worthwhile. In the 2022 version, Kat is portrayed by Albert Strusch, sorry if I mispronounced, and his take on the character's relationship with Paul is more relatable to me, as it reminds me of a relationship with my late older cousin who was like a big brother to me, so his death in the film hurt more. And the reason why Kat's relationship with Paul is essential to the story is because it shows the contrasting effects war has between the youth and old. Both sides see and want different things in the world, but only the old are wise enough to not keep their hopes high, as they choose to focus on the reality that is war. The youth is ambitious and naive, with much to learn if war will let them. I used Google for pictures, Tubi and Netflix to watch both films, and IMDb and Letterboxd for plot summaries and other information regarding the films. Following the completion of both films, I'm left wondering why war must exist and why we have normalized violence as a solution to conflict. The story of All Quiet on the Western Front doesn't try to answer those questions, but hopes that the audience is willing to ask uncomfortable questions of their own. And it's for that reason that I enjoyed the films and see how it's influenced media I've consumed in the past. Key pieces that come to mind are Hacksaw Ridge, Attack on Titan, and the Call of Duty series. My favorite parts of both films were the set designs, practical effects, and cinematography that made the war feel real and engaging. I believe the main message that the film tries to convey is that no matter what role you play in war, it will always cost you. So is being complicit in violence worth the reward of glory, or is staying true to humanity worth your reputation if patriotism controls your country? Also, if you watch the 2022 remake, watch it in its original language, which is Germany. It adds to the authenticity of the setting and war, and it makes the film a lot better with the subtitles.